What's up, guys? What's up? It's a bit late. Said I'm gonna do a live tonight. This is not a public mischief live. You gotta do a disclaimer these days in this country. This is for entertainment purposes. It's an opinion piece, right? Serious opinion. But I'm just gonna leave that there and wait for some of you guys to join me. Good evening to all of you. It's very late night, but I'm hearing people saying nobody's coming out, no one's saying anything. So I said, let me come out and do a quick live before I go to bed. Had a long day, but I'm sure all of you did as well. So if you're here, it means you're not at the cricket. Okay. I was in cricket traffic earlier. I had work to do today and a bit of chillaxing, you know. Sometimes you need some chillaxing. Some of you been messaging me telling me get some sleep. Well, I surely will get some sleep at some point. Now is not the time for sleep, my friends. It's the time for conversation, dialogue. So I'll wait. I just run in some tracks in the background, playing a little guitar. Hey, Maddie, how you doing? What's up, guys? All right, we got a nice group in the house tonight. What's up? All right. So let me lower the old music. Got about 100 people here. Let's talk with Shakalakin, guys. Let me lower the old shallow. Right? Just jamming while you know, I get twiddly fingers. So just jamming while I was waiting for you guys to join me. Thank you very much. So tomorrow we're hearing the news that it's supposed to be Irfan Ali's official signing in following an announcement from GCOM. They're awaiting announcement, a declaration from GCOM, and even the US are expected to follow. I see Andrew Holness of Jamaica, the Premier of Jamaica. He is extended congratulations to the president. So I will say a few things, right? And I have a few clarifications to make today. There is even a few posts that I shared that I need to come and give you some clarifications on, right? All around, even stuff that GCOM has said, which is kind of the topic of this. But I'm going to show you I'm accountable on all grounds, so we can cover all of the clarifications that are necessary, all right? And I'll leave it for you guys to decide what should be done. But excuse me, guys. I got like an election sneeze. I don't know, right? I had a cough that started a couple days ago. It's a bit of a flu that's going around. It's like a cough. I use propolis for the cough, but random points today just end up sneezing. So forgive me, please. Blessed Saturday night to you as well, Carolyn. Honey, Carmelita, honey season is basically now upon us. The bees are gathering. It's not I do say September is when it starts, but you know, all the honey is still fresh right now. It's not ripe. And honey doesn't seem to fix sneezing, but it came on with the cough, bit of a runny nose. And I'm gonna ask you to forgive me during this live if I have to sneeze sometimes. I'm fighting one right now. Excuse me. So I'm a bit unwell, as you can see, but I'm still enthusiastic. And a lot of you have been calling me to ask me what's going to happen with the elections, right? Is there going to be a petition? Is there going to be a protest tomorrow? Should people resign? I want to cover some of those things, right? Let me get a bounty. I don't mean to be like blowing on the, blowing into tissues on the live. But like I told you, I got it's a little bit of a flu, right? I've done what I can so far, but let's stay on business, right? So I've been asked, a lot of you called me, reached out to me, appreciate it. Now, Forward Guyana Movement is not the biggest party on the stage, but we don't have, every single vote that we got, we appreciate it, and we're going to represent those people, right? Looks like we will have a seat in Parliament, so I want to thank all of you guys that contributed to that put your faith in us from the bottom of my heart and the heart of the team. We're grateful, and we will represent not just the people that voted for us, but the country, right? So I know for sure Forward Guyana Movement is planning on filing an election petition. I want to be clear on a few things. Now, tomorrow, if the signing in or the swearing in of the president, of the new president, or second term president goes ahead, then I am appealing to you guys for calm, okay? Whether the heads of the larger parties, WIN and APNU, decide they would like to organize a peaceful protest in the same way that in 2020, in response to rigging, the PPP were able to have protests. I mean, there was things burning. I remember the people chasing policemen. I remember a bus being attacked and some school children being injured. A policeman that might have broke his hand, and a number of policemen were running away from it. I remember that. I remember Irfan at Pegasus. I remember a lot of things in 2020. What I don't remember is anyone from that party being charged with public mischief or terrorism. They were exercising their democratic right to question the integrity of the electoral process. And if you go back and search my timeline, why you guys always gotta be like that? Go back and search my timeline. Go 5 years back to 2020. I was one of the people that called on APNU to step down. So many of you have misinterpreted that when I've been looking into irregularities surrounding this process. I am a geek. I don't know when y'all gonna get it. At some point, the trolls I'm talking to, the PPP trolls in particular, I'm a geek. That's your problem with me or my problem with you. I don't know. If things don't add up, it's niggle at me. You know what I'm saying? I gotta find out. It's gotta end up pulling the thread, right? Until I feel a sense of completeness. And this applies. I am a curious individual. Okay, maybe too curious for the government, but I am. Whatever I do or I'm interested in, I just dive into it. I'm very interested in consuming information, knowledge, understanding things. If I don't understand, I just have to keep following until I understand. And I'm fortunate enough to be in a team with many people like that, right? So we've been digging into this thing, and you know, because the elections happen in a mad scramble to try and figure out what happened, I think there's been a lot of confusion and the like. So including some of the posts that people have, the things that people have shared over elections, right? So one of the first clarifications, now, I can just give it to you as I got it, right? So the horse smuggling racket that was alleged by a LFM resident that sat there he said he sat at the airfield and he's seen this thing happening for a couple of days. Horses coming from Brazil going on to the plane, no paperwork, the army were involved, right? So a pilot got in touch with me. I can't name him, but he said that the army Skyvan can be leased. So the army is not involved in smuggling. The Skyvan can actually be leased. So maybe it's a commercial flight or something. And he said, well, it's also, it's very difficult to get animals across from Brazil to Guyana. So it doesn't mean they were smuggled. However, there was no paperwork that was ever presented to show, because the informant on the ground, the allegation made was that these things were just coming over the border and just going on to these Skyvan planes. So perhaps there will be I didn't see any release on any front about that, right? So maybe there will be a response to that. What else was there? There was one, mind you, there were a number of irregularities that I posted around election, right? I am singling out the ones that were incorrect, right? Because I want to stay accountable to you guys. The other one was somebody sent me a video from Vride's Lust where they thought, based on the number of people across the street and the setup, that the polling station had been moved. And you hear them saying in the video, they've moved the polling station. You could hear other people in the background that also seemed audibly upset. But I had somebody go to Vride's Lust and check. that was actually one of the information tents that was set up. The PPP set up these information tents all around the place. They had more lists than the other parties, it would seem, but that was the polling station was still the primary school. What other corrections are there for this election season? And there was one instance, because I posted a number of blank SOPs, right? There was one instance where a general and a regional ballot were posted next to each other. They had differing numbers, but they would because they're general and regional. So I deleted that from the file. But all the other irregularities, the dozens of them that I've posted, they still stand. Those are the only corrections I need to make. Now I also need to make a correction on behalf of GCOM. And let me tell you guys, I check this thing every way till Sunday and back, and feel quite watertight in my conclusion at this point to be able to share it with you guys, and also let you know this is going to be a part of the petition that we make, right? So the issue in question surrounds the Constitution. Now that's the supreme law. Okay, that there's nothing above that in our country. The Constitution. This is the founding document. Right? So I would have noted, as many people would have noted, that there were Commonwealth nationals, people from India, Bangladesh, that were voting in our elections, right? And the allegation is upwards of 20,000 of these persons voted in the election. This is excluding the people from Venezuela. We know how many of them get ID cards, right? So on one basis, it's highly unethical to bring workers, transient workers from another country to vote in your election. But not everybody in Guyana is predisposed towards consideration of ethics, okay? So those people, I would hope, are more predisposed towards consideration of what the actual Constitution of the People's Cooperative Republic of Guyana says, right? So I would have noted that the GCOM official that was pronouncing when people raised the issue that there were busloads of these Bangladeshis and stuff trying to vote around the place, and I'll take you as far back as January of this year when 110 voters were found to be registered to a single address in Ogle, and those persons were under the employ of one of the Indian construction firms. So those were transient workers. They're living in some barracks kind of thing, and they were all registered. 110 people. I know it's like rice grain. How you fit all them people in the house, I don't even know. But let's not deal with physics today. We're just dealing with what the report said, and the number of voters at that polling station jumped. This has been documented since January, okay? So these guys now, Ashoka and these other companies, so they have their workers here, they're resident, and GCOM said to the people that residency, continuous residency for a year was the requirement for Commonwealth citizens to be able to vote. And they quoted Article 159 of the Constitution. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not wrong, actually. I read it twice. So that's what they said, residency. That was repeated by the CARICOM observer, who was also questioned on the matter. And I assure you, did not go to the Constitution. She parroted what she heard from the GCOM official. And why wouldn't she? Because anyone in their right mind would think that the GCOM official would quote the Constitution in its entirety. Now, what ended up happening, and I'm going to put out a much more detailed explainer on this. I'll read you some of it, actually. But what ended up happening is the GCOM official only spoke to the residency permit, the residency requirement, rather, all right? I was told, I run this by a number of lawyers as well, and I was told that with regard, and don't think y'all gonna send no 10-day workers by my house again after I finish this live PPP, because I done share this document with enough people, okay? Right, so let's scroll, lovely, okay. So these workers now, right? GCOM said that they can vote because they are registered and they're like resident here. But the Constitution itself actually speaks to being resident and domicile. So you guys could go Google. You want to fact check me. You think Fracis ran out of his mind or something. I'm just going to ask you to fact check me kindly. Go to Google and type in Constitution of the People's Republic of Guyana, or just Constitution Guyana, and you see what you find. So we have Article 159, qualifications and disqualifications for electors. 1, right? I'm just going to take you up to 3 even, right? So it says 1, no person shall vote at an election unless he or she is registered as an elector. Now, there's an earlier constitutional act, is Article 59. Article 59 basically references 159. I don't think it's not necessary for me to go to it now, but that basically sets up 159. And this is the meat of the matter here. 2, subject to the provisions of, and I'm going to break things down after, right? Subject to the provisions of paragraphs 3 and 4, a person shall be qualified to be registered as an elector for elections if and shall not be so qualified unless on the qualifying date he or she is of the age of 18 years or upwards and either A, is a citizen of Guyana, or B, is a Commonwealth citizen who is not a citizen of Guyana and who is domiciled and resident in Guyana and has been so resident for a period of 1 year immediately preceding the qualifying date, and C, satisfies such other qualifications as may be prescribed by or under any law. Now, C, I believe, was inserted with a constitutional amendment, right? But the important bit, and what the GCOM official quoted, was 2B of Article 159 of our Constitution, freely available for any of you to read and fact check me on this. As a matter of fact, I've uploaded it multiple times before I come to talk to you about it, to see if any of the legal scholars out there would come to challenge my assertion, and then I just gone deeper into the rabbit hole, because you see, the Constitution actually set out to prevent an instance where transient workers could come and vote and influence the elections of Guyana, all right? Resident, again, I'm urging all of you, check this, especially anyone that came to troll me. Just go, use the time you would use to troll me and Fracis was a ass and Fracis was a blah, blah, blah. Use that time, switch screens, go to Google, and type some of this in and see what you get. Type, search for the Constitution, look for Article 159, just go scroll, you're going to find it. And then the next thing you can search for is the difference between residence, right, and domicile. Resident and domicile. So resident, you can be a temporary worker or the like these guys that they brought in. And remember, this election, you see, everybody is looking for this rigging in the wrong place, really. There are some discrepancies with the SOPs, quite a few, right? Like all the blank ones. I'm going to upload that video next. A lot of blank SOPs on the website, like too many, because it shows you that the process was compromised. Like, it's like the equivalent of signing a blank check and giving someone a blank check that you sign. Nobody just signs SOPs that are blank unless they're compromised, I would assume, or want to know who signs blank SOPs. They got counts on them, right? Some of them totally missing. They have one, another one that was brought to my attention today. APN, you got the highest number of votes on this one, right? But it got 109 ballots cast, 109 votes cast, and then 109 ballots rejected. It has the person's name, but they didn't sign it. All right. I don't know if did they count that. How do they count the ones where the SOP, like the tally for the parties, are missing, but it got 100 and something votes here, 100 and this votes here? No, that is not statistically significant. Like you might capture a couple thousand votes there, but I mean PPP claiming to have won, the results showing them that they've won by a much larger margin than a couple thousand votes. So something like that, and a number of the other discrepancies can be dismissed much more easily by them, and like they can acknowledge it. Yes, that's a problem, but We still won. It doesn't warrant going and nullifying the result of the election or anything. We still won. Right? So there's a number of things like that. The disenfranchisement of voters, people that went to polling stations and were turned away, that were told that their names were not on the list. And these are people that are willing to come forward and document and give evidence that yes, they were there. Right? That happened to them or their relative, and we know these people, right? We've contacted them. So disenfranchisement, people that were told that they'd voted already, people that had their polling stations changed. We need an audit on these numbers. How many Guyanese were disenfranchised at the same time as the system was loaded with foreign voters? And this plan, I could track it back to like 2022 when they started unloading. First, you create more work than the local workforce can handle, right? And everyone is asking, why are they putting out so many hundreds of billions of dollars in contracts and stuff? Is more work than everyone can handle. You create the justification to bring in a foreign workforce, and then you exclusively, they exclusively brought them in from China, Bangladesh, India, and they had their purposes because they wanted to shore up their side of the vote. It's like that's the ethnic insecurity that's in the PPP, and simultaneously they refused to release the census for years, right? So people could not see what was happening. Pack the register. So the SOPs and stuff, people looking to recount, the corruption has happened at a deeper level than that. It happened months ago. It happened with the database even. We already have an instance where GCOM admitted to voter fraud on their database, where someone had their picture changed and their address changed, their polling station changed, right? They said it was now cured in the article that was published in Demerara Waves, but checks to GCOM's website would reveal that the oral sample's address remains the fictitious address that it was changed to somewhere in Sophia. Who accepts that without a proper audit to see how many people that happened to? Because on election day, people were saying their polling station changed. They already vote. Well, maybe that's because somebody with another face on the list voted, or people that turned up and found that their name was not on the physical list there at their polling station, but when they check online, their name was listed online. Those are things, even sum together, there's a few thousand votes down there, right? Now, you have to look at what are the most statistically significant number of votes, and that would be like from the population of 100,000 Venezuelans that Jaggi said they brought over here, and this allegation that upwards of 20,000 of these Commonwealth workers from India, Bangladesh, and the like voted here. Because on that point, this is a constitutional matter now. And on a constitutional basis, those people are ineligible from voting in our election. That's what the Constitution set out to safeguard, right? That's why it doesn't just say residency. I know, and I called a friend of mine tonight. I saw a post that he made, and I realized he was unclear on this as well. Many of us are still unclear about this. And again, before you come to argue with me, I would urge you go directly to the Constitution so you and I can have a reasoned, rational debate on some factual information. All right? So it says, is a Commonwealth citizen who is not a citizen of Guyana and who is domiciled and resident in Guyana and has been so resident for a period of 1 year immediately preceding the qualifying date. Okay? That's very important. So that's thousands of people that should not have voted, because otherwise, over the next 5 years, you would never have another credible election. You just, every election cycle, the government just have to bring in tens of thousands of people from wherever it feels is going to give them the boost. That's all they have to do. And if the opposition get in and they decide they want to go to Ghana and bring 50,000 people, they bring them. And then PPP come in and they want to go playing racial politics with the nation. PPP come back in and they want to bring 100,000 people from Bangladesh. They could do as they like to vote in the election. So at some point, there are going to be more foreigners voting in the election of Guyana than Guyanese. Do you think that is wise for our national security? Even if you are entitled, it's your constitutional right to pick whichever party, even those of you watching me now that belong to the PPP, or you are tied bundle with them. It's your constitutional right. I'm not here to fight you on that. I will fight you on the ethics of what has gone on here. This is improper, and it more so, not just improper, it directly goes against the Constitution. And this is why the GCOM official did not speak to the requirement for being domicile. So let me just read you a little bit of what I've written down here. So all right, so Guyana's legal framework for Commonwealth voters. Article, so just rehashing a little bit, right? So Article 59 of the Constitution of Guyana sets out who is qualified to vote. It grants universal suffrage to adult citizens of Guyana and to certain non-citizens, stating, subject to the provisions of Article 159, every person may vote at an election if he or she is of the age of 18 years or upwards and is either a citizen of Guyana or a Commonwealth citizen domiciled and resident in Guyana. In other words, a non-Guyanese Commonwealth citizen may only vote if they are both domiciled and resident in Guyana. Article 159 of the Constitution further clarifies the eligibility criteria. Article 159(2)(b) provides that no person is qualified to be registered to vote unless on the qualifying day he or she, again going back to the Constitution, a Commonwealth citizen who is not a citizen of Guyana and who is domiciled and resident in Guyana. They didn't just pick one word, they used both, right? In plain terms, a Commonwealth citizen must, 1, have been living in Guyana for at least 1 year up to the registration date, and 2, be domiciled in Guyana to be eligible to register and vote. The 1-year requirement clearly applies to residency. The Constitution does not say that one must be domiciled for a year. Domicile is a separate, additional requirement. Importantly, the domicile requirement is distinct from the residency requirement. The drafters imposed a dual requirement for Commonwealth voters. They must be domiciled and resident in Guyana. This suggests an intent to ensure that only those foreign Commonwealth citizens who have genuinely made Guyana their home, and not just transient workers, can influence Guyana's elections. As one commentary noted, the likely rationale was to restrict voting to Commonwealth citizens who have stayed long enough so that they lose the intention of permanently returning home and instead desire to take up residence in Guyana indefinitely. In other words, the Constitution tries to exclude short-term visitors or temporary workers from the franchise unless they truly sink their roots in. Despite this clear constitutional language, GCOM's Public Relations Officer stated in a press conference that under Guyana's laws, Commonwealth citizens residing legally in the country for over 1 year are eligible to vote. That's from Stabroek News. The statement was criticized as clear ignorance of the law because it ignored the domicile requirement. Fulfilling a 1-year residency is necessary, but not sufficient. The person must also be domiciled in Guyana. GCOM appeared to rely on the National Registration Act, which governs voter registrations, that requires 1 year of residence for Commonwealth citizens. However, the Constitution is the supreme law, and it explicitly adds domicile as a condition. If the National Registration Act or GCOM's practice fail to account for domicile, then they were effectively overlooking a constitutional prerequisite. So now, one more section, because this is very long, right? It's very long, but I'm going to post it. One more section just so we're clear, okay? And at this point, before I go into this here, I've had a lot of questions as to can the commissioners from the opposition side, people have called to ask if there's any way to stall the declaration because of all the inconsistencies and the allegations of the tampered ballot boxes and the stuff the opposition parties have asked to be investigated. One of the ideas that has been floated at me is, what if the opposition commissioners resign? Well, the time to do that would have been before the elections were called, right? Because these guys were clearly in the loop. They know what was going on. They could have resigned before that was called, and the opposition leader would have had to appoint new commissioners. But there are provisions to prevent that system being hijacked. So even if my understanding is, even if right now the commissioners were to resign from the opposition side, it wouldn't stop anything, right? Another thing, during the recount, right, there was a widely publicized video of Chanel Daniel Smith and one of the GCOM officials, and they were arguing over, well, it was everybody, but Chanel was probably the most vocal person there from the opposition, right? And there was a war of words between them about where the X goes. Now, I know, and you know, that in GCOM's voter education, they always tell you put the X in the box, right? And I have never outright, I urge you guys to share that with me, I've never outright heard GCOM say that if it's outside, anywhere outside the box, it's a spoiled ballot per se, right? If the law, again, we coming back to the law, says that if there is clear intent, regardless of what GCOM have communicated, what the law says is if there is clear intent to select a particular party, so the X is not in the box, but next to the box, and is clear intent, right? Or some mark that shows clear intent for this party in this line. It's not randomly positioned or whatever. So I heard it was on the number 5. Now, which would be on the left-hand side of the paper. That's arguable for me. That's a whole debatable issue down there. But if it doesn't have to be within the box. That's what I'm saying, right? And GCOM need to issue clarifications with that regard and teach people the actual law. And if it is that they want to make some amendment so it says different in the law, then so be it. But that's what it says. And it begs the question, how many votes have been rejected on those grounds? Because the vote in question had to do with that person who chosen the PPP. So if it's fair across the board, it needs to be fair across the board. So that needs to be, if I don't know if a review needs to be done on those grounds, but that's what the law says. So on that particular issue there, GCOM was right, in my opinion. For my fact-finding mission to fact-check them, GCOM was right about that one. The exact position of that line, I don't know, but they were right about indication, clear indication, right? So we're talking about domicile versus resident and understanding the difference, and in particular why those thousands of Commonwealth voters that allegedly, we had all videos them driving around the place to vote, and we had reports since from January showing that, up to 100 and something people registered to a single address in Ogle. We had, I met a guy that was working for Geico, and I recorded it. I was doing a live. I ended up chatting with bro. I heard the guy, a truck pull up and everybody talking in Hindi. So I went over to them on a live and I clip it out and I posted for you guys. It was like June 16th or 17th. I went to the guy who's speaking Hindi and I was like, hey, how are you? Because I know they speak English in India, okay? It was a British colony for like 300 years or something, right? Everybody's there like, he don't understand you. He understand me, bro. Might have a little accent, but he understand what I was saying. And I asked him, hey, how you doing? I asked him where he's from. He said India. I asked him which part of India. The man said he's from Delhi, right? I asked him how long he been in Guyana. He said he been here 1 year. I asked him if he's voting in the election this year. He said yes. I said, you voting? He not again. And then I was like, my face started doing a whole set of things. It's documented. It's time stamped. Okay, so it's not like last year, remember when the government said they bring in 500 Bangladeshi nurses? They was going to pay them better. They was bringing a set of different company They bring Kalisparu for run Powerline and Ashoka and these people. Then when the contract done, they keep finding work for them to do, right? Everybody ignoring the Constitution where it said domicile. These people now going home on holiday, sending home money, right? If you sending home money to your family, you going home on holiday and leave, and you live in a 110-man house, you could tell me you domicile in this country, that is your permanent residence. Mind you, they did have like a slush of thousands of new house lots in Region 4 to consider. So if somebody wanted to pair people with house lots, I don't know, but there needs to be an investigation into this. Again, my disclaimer, this is not public mischief. This is inquiry, right? Let me drink some bitters. It got a little lemongrass in it, right? It got a little lemongrass. It bitter? Yeah. So, I don't know if it's a cup. Yeah, so, you know, it's very important. These people should be struck from the register. Okay? Clearly, the Constitution is supreme. So let's go and dive into domicile versus resident and understanding the difference, because those of you that watch this can hopefully communicate this to others. And again, what I'm saying to you, the larger opposition parties will decide whether they want to mount peaceful protests tomorrow. I'm calling for peace, and I'm letting you know as well, to those of you that have been calling and asking me, that yes, a petition will be filed, because this process, the whole process has clearly been rigged. Okay, at this point, knowing that we're standing on the back of the Constitution, you could clearly say that the election was rigged. And that's not public mischief, because the Constitution says that the election was rigged. Not Francis Michael Bailey. I'm telling you what the Constitution is saying. The Constitution of the People's Cooperative Republic of Guyana is saying the 2025 election was rigged because we have thousands of ineligible voters on the voters roll that were able to vote on elections day, that according to the Constitution itself, Section 2B of Article 159, are ineligible. So don't argue with me, argue with the Constitution. Don't come and troll me. Don't tell me I's a madman. You go and tell the Constitution that the Constitution is a madman. That's what I'm saying. So let me dive into this segment here. So, residence generally refers to where a person lives at a given time. It is largely a matter of fact and can be temporary or short-term. Someone is resident in Guyana if they are physically present and living in Guyana, even for a limited period. The Constitution's one-year residency rule simply means the person must have lived in Guyana for at least a year before registration. This ensures a minimum connection or familiarity with the country. Residency is often seen as a practical concept, and laws sometimes use specific time frames, like 1 year, as a proxy for establishing residency. Domicile, on the other hand, is a technical legal concept with a much higher threshold. In common law, which Guyana inherited from British law, every person has a domicile, essentially one place considered their permanent home under the law. Unlike simple residence, domicile is not defined by a set time period. It involves the person's intention and long-term connection to a place. Key characteristics of domicile in legal terms include one legal domicile at a time. A person can have many residences, example, multiple houses or living in different countries over time, but can only have one domicile at any given moment. Domicile of origin and choice. At birth, one acquires a domicile of origin, usually that of one's father or mother or place of birth. Now you will note on many of the ID cards that were presented that's shown of these Indian nationals and Bangladeshis, they put a nationality as Commonwealth citizen. Who does that? Which country does Commonwealth citizen come from? If you had to run a criminal background check on one of these people, which country, which embassy for Commonwealth citizen do you call? Guyana is a Commonwealth, part of the Commonwealth. When we go to the UK, it doesn't say Commonwealth citizen. It will say country of origin, they're going to put your country there. Why did they do that? Right? To mask that the truck drivers from the people that was... All right, right? Let's continue. So, at birth, one acquires a domicile of origin. This domicile of origin remains until the person legally acquires a new domicile of choice in another jurisdiction. Intention to remain indefinitely. To acquire a domicile of choice in a new country, mere residence is not enough. The person must intend to remain there permanently or indefinitely for the foreseeable future. And I can't imagine that the government imported people to they just imported people to stack the road. They always told us they were temporary workers. They came to work on this project. This company contracted for this project. The government never came to the people and said, we are literally importing citizens because we're running out somehow, right? So, blah, blah, blah. Intention to remain. Conversely, if the person's stay is for a fixed term or purpose, or they harbor a firm intention to return to another country, they are not domiciled in the new country, even if they reside there for many years. Case by case determination. Domicile is assessed case by case, looking at the individual's life, actions, and stated intentions. It's not measurable solely on the basis of duration of residence. For example, a person could live in a country for 10 years and still not acquire domicile if evidence shows that they viewed the stay as temporary. Likewise, a shorter stay might establish domicile if the person truly intended to make that place their permanent home. In summary, being domiciled in Guyana means making Guyana your permanent home, not just living there for work or study, but having an open-ended intent to stay indefinitely. You send it for your family, different things, right? A useful explanation comes from the former Guyanese election official who noted that he had been resident in Barbados, the UK, and the USA for various periods as a student or employee. And I quote, "But throughout all that time, I've remained domiciled in Guyana. Why? Simple. Guyana is where I make my permanent home, and while residing in all other countries, I harbored a present intention to return to my original place of residence indefinitely." No matter how long he lived abroad, he was always intending to come back to Guyana. Hence, his domicile never changed. Similarly, a Commonwealth citizen living in Guyana who always yearns to return to the land of their birth and has not made Guyana their permanent home and therefore would not be domiciled in Guyana, they would not have formed the intention to remain indefinitely in Guyana. Okay, so to illustrate the concept, I don't know if you guys want me to go into all of this, right? But I'm going to post it up, and I had another section I wanted to call it for you guys, right? So Commonwealth cases emphasize that one's domicile of origin is not easily lost. It clings until a new domicile is firmly acquired. Any ambiguity in intention tends to result in retaining the original domicile. Right? And implications. If indeed the number of Commonwealth workers, especially in their thousands, turned out and voted without being domiciled in Guyana, that would mean they were constitutionally ineligible to vote, despite having met the 1-year residency and being on the voters list. The Constitution's language is unambiguous that a non-citizen voter must be both domiciled and resident. As commentator Christopher Ram noted, even if such a person managed to get registered, perhaps due to an oversight or misinterpretation by GCOM, the Constitution states that the person is not eligible to vote in our elections. In his words, if GCOM improperly registered a non-domiciled person, let me say it was an accident, it should take corrective action and ensure that the person does not vote, since allowing an unqualified voter is not an acceptable outcome. The crux of the election petition's argument will be that GCOM overlooked the requirement of domicile in favor of residency and requirement alone. In other words, they allegedly let people vote simply because they lived in Guyana for a year and were legally present, without probing whether those individuals had made Guyana their permanent home as required. Okay? Many of the 20,000 plus such workers that reportedly voted are contract workers from countries like India, Bangladesh, etc., who came for jobs in construction, oil, or with CARICOM, and who intend to return home after their stint. Under the legal definition of domicile, such persons remain domiciled in their home country, their domicile of origin. Since they lack the intention to stay in Guyana indefinitely, they would be classified as residents, not domiciliaries of Guyana. Right? So, for example, this is a good example. A Bajan national working at CARICOM Secretariat in Georgetown on a multi-year assignment, but who plans to go back to Barbados afterwards, is a resident in Guyana during that time, but he is not domiciled in Guyana. The same logic applies to a trainee Indian Bangladeshi construction worker who fully expects to return home despite living and working in Guyana. They have not acquired a Guyanese domicile. If such individuals voted, they did not actually meet constitutional qualifications. One letter to the editor bluntly asked whether those Commonwealth citizens might not have fulfilled the dual requirements of being domiciled and resident, and thus might have been disqualified from voting despite casting a ballot. And this is precisely the issue I would like you to consider. Right? So I hope that makes some sense to you guys. Right? Yeah, they've not. That's just one of many problems with this election. So even if at the end of the day it is shown that the PPP won this election, then I can live with that. I can't live with glaring inconsistencies and what's clearly the rigging of the process. Okay, I can't, that wouldn't settle in me. And if people, those of you that are in the PPP, if you want people to celebrate with you and congratulate you, run a fair race. You can't run an unfair race and expect everyone to clap and celebrate and cheer, right? We are decidedly in the age of a more dictatorial administration, and where malice and these things are actually promoted as virtues rather than decried. So I want to know who is making the rules here. I thought we were all following the Constitution. What other questions were I asked that I can tell you guys about? Yeah, you asked what we're doing. This is what we're doing. We're drafting our petition. However, the Court of Appeal has been stuck. They put in five judges they put in there. They changed the acting Chief Justice. They already know what they're doing, and they readied the courts to rule in their favor, I would assume. However, given that this is a constitutional matter and there's no precedent, there man be setting precedent here in the world, right, for saying domicile is the same as resident. It is not. Okay? So those people should be struck from the register, and I can't believe under the cover of night the government would import thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Like not people fleeing a refugee crisis or whatever. Import them and put them to vote for you. That's wild. Right? It's unethical, and at some point it'll compromise our national security. Imagine you bring some random, you don't know who you bring in, what their crime history is. And I'm telling you, from any Commonwealth country, for those of you that just naturally assume, right? Any Commonwealth country, you can't do a background check on some. You see the police get them and see their ID. It says their name, and then it says country of origin, Commonwealth citizen. What is that? Y'all even giving the police work? If any of them are involved in crime or something improper, how are you going to track them down? Find out who they actually are. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy to me. So tomorrow, the sign-in goes ahead and the like. It doesn't seem that there's much that can be done to block it, call it off or anything. But forgive me if I have no congratulations to give the bully in the room that literally wrestled his way to the front and did everything possible to hobble his competitors, and then wanted cheer for being the biggest and the best. And right, the voter turnout was so low. I also bring you some findings from a mathematician on that note. An analysis, brilliant mathematician, did an analysis of the stats, right? I think you guys will be very interested to hear what he has to say. But time is moving away from us. I'm exhausted. I had a long day today. My sneezes eased up. I only had like 3 sneezes. I'm sorry for sneezing on you guys. Let me wipe that off. Yep. But yeah, this is a very important discussion to have, right? Make some clarifications, and the most important one of them was to make clarifications on behalf of GCOM. I'm not working for GCOM, okay? But if there was anybody right and proper in there, they would go and pick up the Constitution before running to the press release section tomorrow to say, right against Fracis. Go and read the Constitution. I'm not here to argue on what you call itation. I didn't just meditate this. I went and checked what the good book says, right? And the Constitution is supreme. So those people will be struck off. And then, so what do we do with the election results? We find that there's thousands of people. How we know which one is their vote? You would have to call fresh elections. So I won't have it said that any of this is inciting, and I've noted this trend since Adriana Young, this trend that any time in particular, right, anytime someone tries to speak the truth, or they try to investigate what is true from what is false, have discussion that does not please the dictatorship, there's always somebody with a steady drumbeat that violence should greet this person, the police should tag the police, tag this person, they should be arrested, jailed right now for misinformation. You guys were not there calling for that in 2020, right? And I taste the hypocrisy, because I fear and I'm consistent. Y'all could go back 10 years, however long. I am consistent. Wrong is wrong for me, and right is right. You do right, I'm going to acknowledge it, and I will praise you for it. You do wrong, I'm going to call you out. And wrong is wrong, right is right. When the whole rigging thing surfaced in 2020, wrong was wrong. It is 2025. I am the same person. Wrong is wrong. We all expect me to do. Right? It's not me switch out. It's my PPP friends switch out on me. I am the same person. I've been consistent. Wrong was wrong then, and I'm looking with my same 2 eyes now, and wrong is wrong today. And it would never settle in me that this was being done to my motherland. Never. It's our mother, and it's up to us to represent these issues. So I hope I've been clear enough. There's a multiplier effect. I really do believe in that. We've had our team meetings and the like. This thing here I've drafted, and I've shared you bits from it, and I've really tried my best tonight. That was the focus of this conversation, because there are many other irregularities, and we could go back and forth posting SOPs and stuff, but they're looking for the fraud in the wrong place, right? In many of those places, you could count SOPs till your eyes run dry. In a lot of places, you're gonna find that they either match up or they're a little different. You have to have a full recount to really spot if there's been any stuffing of the ballots, right? But I don't believe that's where the focus of the rigging was on this election. This is like a pre-rigged election. This is at database level, at voter registration level. That's how much control this PPP party have wrestled from the nation. That's how deep their fingers are, right? It's at that level, importing people strategically. It wasn't an accidental thing. It was planned. You could go right back, go on Google or GPT it. All the contracts awarded to Indian, Bangladeshi the companies over the last 5 years. Track it. How many workers have been brought? Track it. Go and track it. And then why I didn't know, which is that video I posted with the guy from India saying he's gonna vote. I didn't realize that they were using all the contractors to bring in more of them. You understand? That's immoral. I never hear such a thing in my life.
importing people for winning election, but this is when you know your own people fed up here by you gotta import people. So create this justification and then you already know what's gonna happen. So you start broadcasting, bossing people up and down the place to create this visual, impactful message about this landslide victory that you've already prepared. And that's why the confidence was there. People are like, but people fed up here, you're breaking up all the road. Look, people ain't got water. Yeah, I promise a gas to show they have gas to nowhere. I get blackout how much time for the last month. I wake up in election, they did not have water. I was like, hey, you know, and people's like, the road patch last week, it broke up again. A lot of people was fed up. So, you know, and then people still like, landslide, landslide. No matter what happened, no matter what happened. You know what I'm saying? The moon itself could have followed the sky and like the tides changing and they'd be like, landslide. Now, we know why. We're very confident. Because nothing much had to happen on the actual day. I mean, definitely I would like to know more about I can talk about another thing, right? I can't overload you guys. Let me talk about 1 or 2 irregularities at a time. Because whoa. Okay? So I would urge you guys, if any of you, again, I'm an accountable human being, and I urge you to keep me accountable. We got a few thousand votes. I love you guys for that, but I am here for all of you, right? If even one person vote for we, well, we'd feel terrible, right? But we still represent the one person and the rest of you, right? We must be our brothers and sisters' keeper in these dark times, okay? So I urge you to maintain the peace, but go to war with your pen and your voice. Speak up for the future of your country. I'm telling you, I'm gonna keep this video and come back in 5 years, 10 years and see how we did. Cause at this moment here is either we are closing the floodgates or we are opening them, and there will be no other fair even close to, because this was definitely not, this was the least fair election I have ever heard of in Guyana's history, right? With the amount of money that was spent to buy it, right? So suppress the local vote, increase the foreign vote. Once this is allowed to slide, GCOM's faulty interpretation of our constitution, where they go and delete it in the night. If this is allowed to slide, then the floodgates are open. You don't have a country anymore, as far as I'm concerned. Because they could just bring in tens of thousands of people from any goddamn place that they like and call them Guyanese after 1 year, and they're voting just to keep themselves in perpetually. Ask them for the census and why they never released the census up to now. Years and years they can't release it. But they got everybody cash grant details. Why is it that some people found that their address on the official list of electors was where they registered for their cash grant? That's not where that information is supposed to come from. Had a man from Barbies had to come till to Georgetown because this is where you register his cash grant. Cash grant registration is supposed to have not. Why are those? Why they interfering with GCOM? How they end up on GCOM database? Who changed Mr. Sample picture and address? Why people want to keep dismissing these things? How widespread was the problem? So I'm sorry, I saw the exchange between the president and Irfan Ali and Travis Chase. I was very disappointed, you know. I was disappointed. It showed a typical tone towards journalists and people that ask questions in this country. It's arrogant, it's bullyish, it's this self-entitled, it's all grounded in this talk about respect. Let's have mutual respect for each other. And you know, you guys check out, I did really enjoy British politics when I was living there. I mean, they have their issues and the like, but I love the fact that, you know, I was able as a teenager, you know, sitting looking at TV and you see a guy ask a politician a question and he has to answer. He's searching for the answer. And hard questions, not easy questions. Hard. Keep them accountable, and they realize, they know they have a relationship to play. Each has their own role. One to try and lead the people, the other one to make sure that they are accountable. That's what Travis, kudos to Travis, kudos to people like Svetlana Abrams that go and ask the hard questions. Kudos to those people. Love you guys for that, right? So, it's disturbing, but you guys have to stand up for your own country. This is not an incitement to violence. This is an incitement to critical thought. Incitement you to go and check out the Constitution. Incitement for you to fact check me on the difference between resident, domicile, and whether or not I am correct in my assertion that both of those words appear in Article 159, Section 2B. Right? Yeah, so lot of things, but I don't want to cover all the irregularities all in one video. I should probably do a more detailed explainer at some point. But boo 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 apnulu. You could have tried and make that rhyme like boo boo you who up PNU something, man. You could think. I mean, right now we're and sorry, bro. I am not a part of APNU. You understand? I think they let the ball drop, and I've been saying that for how long, right? So a lot of the supporters, they would have lost to win. They need to study that and the difference between what goes on in people's mind and the reality. A lot of people have been saying for a long time they didn't feel represented, like myself included. That's why you're buying a whole party now. I did not feel represented by the opposition, Dread. And I'm not talking as a black man, I'm talking as a citizen. And as an Afro-Guyanese, definitely there's nobody speaking against racism in that parliament down there, against the pervasive racism used by the PPP's propaganda arm against Afro-Guyanese. There's nobody speaking against that. There's no leadership on that front. Aubrey Norton, in my opinion, was lazy on that front, okay? And people not feeling shielded from attack. What are some of them going to do? They defect and go into the PPP. They don't have no covering fire behind them. Nobody's at the barricade helping them out. Some of them defect. So I don't blame all the people that defected to the PPP for that reason. I would disagree on moral grounds, ethical grounds, right? Condoning wrongdoing that you claim to disagree with. That's the grounds I would disagree with, but it's everybody's constitutional right. And I could even understand why some of the people left. Some went under the umbrella of win. Okay? I can understand. So that calls for some soul searching within APNU. Not everybody likes to have these difficult conversations, but APNU need to do some soul searching. People don't just get up and walk out your house with no valid reason. And if people do that, and you don't even ask yourself why, and try to fix whatever it was that made them leave, you don't deserve the rest of them. That's the truth of it. Okay? I'm done with this, and I think, there's a lot of Guyanese that are done with this race-based politics, but I'm going to tell you was one problem in the room. I'll tell you why I figured that the PPP voting bloc, their core support bloc, are actually who are keeping Guyana back. Because, hear me out before you start cussing and losing your mind, right? Guyana is divided between an ideological voting bloc and a tribalist voting bloc, and I will explain that. So both PPP and PNC have traded accusations over the years that the support base for each are racist, with the PPP having a largely Indo-Guyanese support base and the PNC/APNU having a largely Afro-Guyanese support base. Both have traded the accusation that the other is racist, right? Yet it remains, I think this election has shown us something, it remains that the only group of people in this country that threw a lot of their weight behind a presidential candidate that was not of their race, Azzuddin Mohammed is East Indian, of course, and if you notice, a lot of his supporters came from the Afro-Guyanese community. Are they racist? And there is no parallel of similar movement on the other side, where I could show you a party where thousands of East Indo-Guyanese joined behind a presidential candidate that was not of their race. So that is a division, and that's why the opposition is more fractured, right? And I will talk about this within the context of game theory, and I would urge you guys to go read up on that as well. right? But I was just thinking it creates fractures in, or what they say, splitting up in the opposition camp, because on one hand you have a population that's willing to vote on ideological issues and more on policy and stuff like that. So their vote will tend to be a little more fluid. The core support base that the PPP tries to maintain is based on tribalism, in, out, magical red shirt, get you privileges and access to the treasury or to help loot. And on the other hand, if you don't have the shirt on, you'll be the victim of persecution, bullying, and misery. Right? All the misery we can give you, we're gonna give you. So it's like in or out, do or die. You gotta be with us. It's a different system. You understand? It's one where racism is used as a tool to both subjugate, control, and drive fear into the hearts of the persons they consider to be the opposition, and they always push the narrative. This was one of the reasons I was happy Azudin was in this election, because every election, the PPP's classic narrative is to push this idea of the angry black people that are going to come and kick in your doors. Even the idea here, Jag, you're talking about who's going to blah 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 when people they come to kick in your doors. And then from a few years ago, he was talking about what the black people beating the drums and saying chase the coolie. Then you had Nandala with the house slave. There was an ad I saw with Irfan where he's like, he's kind of giving this warning tone, and the image it cut to with the child it cut to, and his expression, it left me like, You know what I'm saying? So nobody talks about these things. I don't know why. We're all mature adults in this room. Why don't we have these discussions more? Why has Guyana never had a truth and reconciliation? There's so many of these incidents that we need a truth telling in our society, a great healing, a great counseling for our brothers and sisters across the divide. Where is it? And who is interested in that? The people that tell us because they care. Right? So the only way to fight that, the only way to compete with a voting bloc that is decidedly tribalist and has these ethnic insecurities that it projects outwardly with its, you can see the projection of it with its desperation to cling to power, and you have a voting bloc that is more fractured because they are fluid in terms of ideology. The only way to fight the PPP is to have a similarly aligned setup, but that's insane. It compels the other side, right? And this is why I said reference game theory. It almost compels the other side to play the same tribalist game once they hold solid to that position, and PPP supporters hold strong to that. It forces the other side to play a race game of some sort, and that is unhealthy for democracy. And then it keeps it going, because then again both sides could be accusing each other, right? But this election has shown me some clarity, right? I'm glad for the plurality that there will be. And like I told you guys, even if after all these anomalies are sorted out, it shows that PPP emerged in the lead, okay, you buy and let it be, just so. But not with thousands of Commonwealth voters and Nigerian people from here, people from there, blank SOP. And hey, I can't take it like that. I'm sorry. If you could take down me and you, is not the same, and we entitled to not be the same. That's okay. You understand? So, yeah, that's what I have to say for tonight. Yep. Ian. Here's the comment I saw as I was about to wrap up, my friend. Guyana is a failed state under this PPP totalitarian hegemony. I agree with you, my friend. I think Chomsky did a very good paper on, is it power and hegemony or something, and hegemony. I'm gonna remember it at some point, but he did a very good paper on it. Noam Chomsky. Yeah. So yeah, you're right, Sion. That's true. That's the greatest idiocy of this country. The fact that when we all travel, Black and Indian, all of us were considered persons of color. Some countries and just say all of us are black. I know there's offense some of you, but damn it, that's what happens. And we all have to, and you go in the other country, we all have to work together and talk and right. You glad to see a Guyanese. You don't even care what color. You just glad to hear you music. There's, you know, you hear your familiar twang. One by, you alright? You be so happy to hear that. You don't care the color of the person. But down here, these guys got you fighting like cat and dog. Not even like cat, like two rat at border market for the last scrap of cheese. Even them rat don't even do themselves like how Guyaneses do each other. And maybe some of it has to do with these long-standing ethnic insecurities that are stoked by both parties, I would say, right? But on one hand, is the PPP justifies the criticisms leveled against it. Okay, I was not alive in Burnham's time. If there was prejudice then, it cannot be justified on the grounds of... The prejudice now cannot be justified on those grounds. You don't punish somebody because you got the same color as Hitler, I can punish you for Hitler. That makes sense? No. Okay, so don't do it. Yeah, there you go. Sure, you know exactly what's up. So guys, thank you very much, Tamika, and thanks again to all of you that gave us your support. I know it was a very contentious election and the like, and we're going to be doing work for the next 5 years to earn some more of your votes for the next time around, and show you that we're very serious about being here to serve our communities and our people in the best way that we can. So I hope this live was beneficial to you guys. I hope you shared it. All you watching it now, I hope you could share it with at least one person. And I'll be back tomorrow, sign in or no sign in, asking you guys, be peaceful and use your pen as your weapon, use your voice, stand up against this rigging of the 2025 election. I hope you understand why now on a constitutional level the election was rigged. So I will not be fearful, and no one should be fearful of saying the election was rigged or using terms such as PPP riggers, you know. Some of their favorite terms over the last 5 years is so ironic. I mean, this is the part I don't get. Like, you criticize someone for doing something, then go and basically do what they do, but a more high-tech version. Hey, somebody give Barra Jaggi a pound for me. That man is a bright man. Or whoever in there is the mastermind for the things with it is after mastermind. Y'all get a man a pound. Buy the man a drink. They got some bright people, but it's just too devious to the country, right? The man bright. You gotta give it to Jagview. The party is well organized and they plan well. I don't think the APNU have kept their ball up, right? They dropped the ball on a number of levels, but it's just the corruption, you know what I'm saying? And this year around, if Ali wants to know why some people have a knot in their stomach, is because just thinking about what the next 5 years of construction and broke up road, and you know, just looking at your money go down the drain as friends and family become obscenely rich, and you just see no proper service to your community. It's just tokenism everywhere, and some people don't know better, so they will come to the comments to argue that what they're seeing is real development. The bridge is nice, you know. They said they're going to open it very shortly, very soon. Anybody that drives past that bridge every day, y'all would know what problem they're having on the western side. Because up to now, I'm still wondering, would they got to build an overnight road or something? Those of you that drive past it, confirm, right? But anyhow, yeah, he's cook up this scheme. Tyrant, I guess, yeah. But a bright tyrant. And you know, for the people in APNU, you have to ask how many times your leader came on alive in the last 5 years to talk with the public and explain things, and how much money did y'all spend from the money y'all was getting to advertise. Somebody called me a time from PNC and said, let we win the election. And I said, who is we? Right? Because I'm getting that another time. I said, who is we? And then the man said, well, he needs some footage. And I like, y'all don't have nobody collecting these things, right? PP must have got 50 drone in the air at any given moment, collecting thing. Watch a nice shot of the road. Watch a nice shot of this. AP and you did a lot of work in their term in office. Where are your photos of the work you did to rally against this cry that you did absolutely nothing? Do you know what that did to your party? For 5 years, the PPP got their supporters out there parroting. AP and they did nothing. They did nothing. They did absolutely nothing. Now, those of us that know better, we come out and say one thing, but I am not in the PNC and APNU. It's not my job to defend the party. I say, but there was silence, there was radio silence. Y'all allow them to lash you with a hammer for 5 solid years and get surprised that you lost voters. Now, I don't think the margins, like them numbers there, still look funny to me, you understand? But yeah, there was a loss in the support base. That's what I'm talking about now, and we have to acknowledge. What did you think would happen? Right? So let us always be honest. At the end of the day, you know, it's probably one of the most disappointing things that's so difficult in our society. It's very difficult to be honest. So let us be honest about the facts. Those are the facts of the matter. And for anyone, any party to improve, to change, to make sure tomorrow is not what it was yesterday and it is better, has to go through a series of acknowledgement. And that's where APNU went wrong from go. The starting of this term, y'all never had any I just rehashing things I've said already, because sometimes people watch these things and think I'm only critical of the PPP. No, I could look across the field and tell you, right? I'll give you honest appraisal. And if the APNU wanted to do better, and if they want to do better next time around, whatever, they have to acknowledge that coming out of the 2020 elections, they never had any meaningful dialogue with the public about what happened and their support base, because those people were very disappointed. A ball was dropped. No acknowledgement, and so the people get disillusioned. You're gonna beat up on them and fight them, same way like the PPPs fight down their supporters that get disillusioned with them. Y'all don't own people. Stop with this plantation slavery mindset kind of thing. Nobody don't own us, and Guyanese ourselves need to break ourselves out of those mental chains. Nobody don't own you. Okay, your allegiance should be to your country, your constitution, your brothers and sisters walking outside on the street of all colors. That's where your allegiance should lie. And those of you thinking that this is folly for Forward Guyana movement to pursue an election petition, or any of the opposition parties for that matter, no, as Irfan Ali rightfully said in his interview, his impromptu interview with Travis Chase, this is about the future. This is very important. This is going to determine the type of environment your future generation is going to grow up in. Your children and their children, whether they're going to be second, third, or fourth class citizens in their own homes, or whether by the time they're ready to vote, they will be outnumbered 2-1 by persons from India, Bangladesh, China, Venezuela, that the government just brought in to keep padding out their voters list as the people that come get fed up, right? So everybody that come, you give them a 5 years, then get fed up. Like these one who come now, will vote for them, I show another 5 years, then get fed up and go and vote for next part. But by then they bring in like double. Where are we going? Where are we going? We might as well just scrap the whole passport and just have an open door policy if that's what they're going to do. And I don't believe in that. Right? So, take heed, guys. Take heed. Take heed. I'm glad we were able to have this discussion. I love you guys. As always, stay safe. Care for each other. Look out for each other. Try and find a way to leave this country and in fact the earth in a better position tomorrow than it was today, with the strength of your actions and your intent and your goodwill. Right? Bless.